Today I want to talk about virtual tabletops, why you should think about using them, and which ones you should look at. So let's talk about virtual tabletops. If you watch my stream enough, you do see that I spend a lot of time preparing for D&D 5e games, both inside my virtual tabletop, mapping for it, stuff like that. So let's talk about how we got to using virtual tabletops, and it has nothing to do with COVID. I started using virtual tabletops a few years ago. Part of the reason was there were times when, like, my Sunday gaming group, everybody couldn't leave the house, but they wanted to play, so I had to figure out a way to get everybody so we could all get on and play. A couple of times we did it where we had the virtual tabletop set up. A group of us were together. The other person got on. They were talking through voice chat program, and I think it was Discord at the time. And I used the tabletop for my map tokens, and they were able to see what was going on. Then we kind of evolved over time where people were like, why don't we play our Sunday games online? You know, we didn't feel like putting pants on, going out to the store. Basically, Sunday's a lazy day. We decided to be lazy in our games. So I started looking for a virtual tabletop solution that could handle that and make life easy. So the first virtual tabletop that I tried was Roll20. So this is Roll20. This was set up for a DCC game we were playing probably 4 to 5 years ago. And this is a map. Actually, DCC, most of their content they have will have little hand-drawn maps with all the information all over them. They don't really provide maps for players. So at the time, I looked for a mapping software. I think what I was using was Dungeon Painter Studio. I made this map. I threw the map up. We created some tokens. The players had their character sheets at home. We used this to roll dice and run the characters so that everybody could play. It worked. And you can automate it more, but let's face it, a lot of people get on the Roll20 because it's free with basic functionality. Now, if you want to get line of sight, all the nice things in there where there are walls and the grids all work properly, you've got to pay for it. And it comes out to $59 a year. And, you know, if you're going to play for years on end, that adds up. Now, I don't really like the Roll20 environment. We also had connectivity issues. So Roll20 lasted, I want to say, a month to 2 months, and I got the hell off of Roll20 as quickly as possible. So after we got tired of Roll20, I had to look for something else. I really hated Roll20. I hated the environment. The connectivity issues really sucked, and I had enough. Now, it's possible Roll20 is better now, but I'm not giving them another chance. And there were other things that happened that turned me off to Roll20. But I just didn't like the environment. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who think Roll20 is the bee's knees, but it's not that great. And if you're using the free plan, you're basically getting what you pay for, and it's not that great. You can run a game, but I don't really like it. So where did this take me? I started looking on the internet, and at this time, the best virtual tabletop that I could find, and I really did like it. I liked it until probably a year ago. And this tabletop was Fantasy Grounds. Let's pull Fantasy Grounds up. All right, so this is Fantasy Grounds. It works well. Now, at the time, it was probably the best virtual tabletop that you could use. you had two options, and the options still apply now. Everybody can buy a copy for $25, or if you don't want to, if you're the only DM and you don't want all of the players to buy copies, or they want to contribute since you're the DM, it's $150 for a lifetime license, and everybody can log in using free software. Now, that's the rub to a bit of it. Let's talk about that. So, some of the issues that I ran into, and this is Fantasy Grounds Unity, the newest one. One of the let's step to the side. One of the issues I have, if you look at this, I mean, this really reminds me of a 3.1 app, Windows 3.1. It's kind of cumbersome to work through. It If you have D&D Beyond, you can't import directly in, which this is another gripe, but it's just kind of cumbersome to work through. You can pop your battle map up. There's the battle map. You can make that your background. It's easy to zoom and move around. But like here's the battle map for level 1 of Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And if you notice, my face cam is over part of it, but your environment you're playing in is going to have a ton of shit on it most of the time. Now, you can, if you want, these are pins. As your players go through, you can just pop the pins, pull that stuff up. You can, there's an encounter in here. You can create the encounter. The placement will pop on there automatically. You do that. There's your black pudding over there. It all does operate well, but you're paying $30 again for each module as well as every book to be able to run this. Now your players will need to come in and create their characters while you're online, which isn't a problem. I always use a session 0, and if they level up at the end, I'll stop early when it's time to level up and say, all right, everybody, take your time, level your characters. If you have any questions, ask them. Let's go. And they can get it done pretty quickly. It does work well. I just don't like how cumbersome, all these windows are needing to be up all the time. So it's expensive. The base cost, $150 to get it, plus buying all the books. Again, I mean, I have all my books on D&D Beyond, and having to buy them again. I mean, at this time, I was buying hardcover, D&D Beyond, so I would have it when I went to the store, and then buying it a third time, that just rubs me the wrong way. And it gets damned expensive. I'll be honest, this system ended up costing a lot of money if you wanted all the books, all the adventures, the splat books, everything. And we played 5e, we played Pathfinder, which meant I bought all the stuff for Pathfinder on this, and we played Dungeon Crawl Classics. And for Dungeon Crawl Classics, I ended up going in, they have a basic, or they had at the time, a basic DCC thing you could download that gave a basic rule set. You still had to go in and basically use an editor, create the adventures yourself, and import the monsters, take care of all the stats and everything. It was a lot of work. I spent, when we decide to do DCC on this, I played on Roll20 for 2 weeks and spent that 2 weeks in my spare time prepping DCC to run. It was a lot of hours that were put in, probably 20, 30 hours. So if it's a system that's not fully supported on this, you're committed to a lot of time getting ready. You're also committed to, if you play multiple systems, a lot of money buying the stuff to be able to play on this. Now, if you do own D&D Beyond, you can go in and spend hours like I did on Dungeon Crawl Classics and import adventures and stuff like that in. But that's a lot of work. And there'll be videos out there saying this is how you do it. And they always pick like Lost Mines of Phandelver, which is tiny little adventure. And you try to bring in something like Mad Mage or any of the hardcovers, you've got a lot of work ahead of you. So if your time is worth less, more than that $29 to buy a book, you're going to buy the book. My time to me was worth it, so I'd buy a book. But It's the double cost of adventures, the look of the interface and how it works. And I'll be honest, there are other issues with this. Now they're kind of fixed because you can set up so that you use one of their virtual servers. That doesn't always work well, or they can log directly into you. And even if you know what you're doing with your router, and let's go to this. Let's be blunt here. Even if you know what you're doing with your router, I would still have issues with some players where they'd have trouble getting in. I'd have all the ports open. I'd have everything forwarded. I would have everything set up, and there would be an issue. Now, this is the rub. Every week, they have updates on this. You update, somebody else doesn't update, it causes a problem because your versions don't match. Because they have to actually download this software, and then they log in through the software to you or to your game. And if there are version conflicts, that causes problems. I mean, there are a lot of issues that can just make you waste time trying to get that player in, or they'll just go, fuck it, I'm not playing. And, maybe during the week you try to get on with them, you get it fixed, and then they can get on next week, and then they have a problem again. It works, but in my experience, there were sporadic connection issues for specific players. And the hassle just got to the point where it was too much. And when Unity first came out, there were serious issues. I'm assuming they're fixed. I mean, people say they are, but they haven't. The interface isn't any better. I'm positive the connectivity isn't going to be any better because you have to know what you're doing with your router. And it's just not the easiest, most budget friendly, nor is it the prettiest as far as tabletops go. Now, I even used this. I'm going to be honest. I used Fantasy Grounds when I went to the store. I had a monitor I would carry with me. I'd set that up. That would be my map. My players would point to where they wanted to go. We would do combat. And then after a while, I took a tablet, let them connect in that way. They could move their things. And they rolled physical dice and all that stuff. They kept their character sheets. They just used that to move their tokens. And it worked really well. I carried a lot less because my books were actually on my laptop. I had to carry a laptop and a monitor instead of 30 pounds worth of books, maps, come home with blue and red fingers from erasing a map. So it was nice. So it is a good system. It's just not what I recommend anymore. It does have a little more functionality, but that's being fixed in what we're going to talk about in a minute. Let's move on to the virtual tabletop that you'll see me using in stream. I use for myself. And at this point, a ton of people that I know who have watched the stream or know me in person, they've bought their own copies of it because it is freaking awesome. And that tabletop is Foundry Virtual Tabletop. And I'm going to talk about why I love this thing. And there are some things in it that can be a little gimpy. We'll talk about everything. So let's jump right on this. This is Foundry Virtual Tabletop. As you can see, not a lot of stuff all over the screen. It works really, really well. It automatically comes with the ability to have line of sight. And I'll talk about something else that makes line of sight even better in this. But you have line of sight, ease of connectivity. I mean, this is something where they log in through a web browser. So nobody has to download software and worry about updates. You're the sole person responsible to make sure that your updates are updated, and you don't even have to do that. And there have been times where some updates have come out. I usually wait a week before I update, and I make sure that it hasn't crashed people's games because I had 2 updates that did that. So you need to be cautious and not auto-update. That I'll put out there. But this thing works really, really well. And then it works even better if you decide to run it on a hosted server, which is what I do now. But it works really well coming in through your computer where they log in directly to you. Setup is simple. Same thing, direct one port, give people your address, and they're in. Now, a couple of really nice things that are in this, and I'm not gonna be able to put it on here because my camera is being used there. But you have built-in AV support. In other words, like across here where I'm pointing with my mouse, you can have everybody with their picture, them talking, and their voice all in the game. It works really well. Now, if you are self-hosting and don't have great internet, that can be a bit of a problem, mostly because the AV works as a peer-to-peer network. In other words, if there's me and 5 players, I'm sending my signal 5 times. So I need the bandwidth to handle those 5 inputs as well as coming back in. And it's like 2.5 to 5 megabits per second. If you're only seeing like 10 to 20 megabits a second, it's not going to work for you. And players have the same issue. If they're somewhere in their house where they don't have good reception, then that'll cause a problem. Now, the reason I went to a hosted server is everybody sends the signal once, it hits that server, and it goes out once. So it's only using 2.5 to 5 megabits per second for everybody's AV to come in there. It's not running peer-to-peer anymore, so you're not having to send that signal and receive multiple signals at the same time. That's why I went to a hosted server. If everybody in your group has great internet and great connectivity, self-host, go for it. I don't have that with my group. Plus, if I want to run other games, it gives me more security. They're not logging directly into me. So that's something else to think about with any of these self-hosted things like Fantasy Grounds, Foundry. They're logging directly into your computer. Let's say you send something out on the web, you want to invite people to play. You don't want a possible bad actor coming in, logging in your computer. If you don't know how to lock it down totally, you could get screwed that way. But let's get back to Foundry. So, if we look at how this thing runs, you notice the look of like the journal and all. Here we have, I can just go in. It's not sloppy. You don't have to go page by page like you do on something like Fantasy Grounds. I can just go in, like right here, we're in Dreamer Core. That's Chapter 9. There's Chapter 9. Exploring this level. I can pull this up, and there's everything. Now, all these things here, they're pins that I drag onto my map, and they'll be right there. So I never even have to have that open. I will pop the rooms as we come in, look at what's in there, read it to the players, done. If you have players in there and you have combat going, there's your combat. You can pop that out, set it to the side. Every player in here, let's see. Let's find our players. And this is my test server. I had downloaded a backup here. So some of these things are not working 100%. That's not Foundry's fault. That's the backup from my online server. And I didn't bother messing with it. If I was going to, this is just what I do if something happens, we can't log into the online server. I set up so I can pull them in. But, if they're still in combat with this poison weird, here he is. They've got your character sheet pulls in, and here's something else really nice. Character sheets, they pull in directly from D&D Beyond. The adventures, if you use, there's a site, and I'm going to pull that up for you. So I know the site doesn't look like awesomely ready or anything, but you go to vtta.io, and then you look up the VTTA modules for Foundry. You download them, and that will allow you to go in and connect directly. I'm not going to do the sign into Google. You sign into Google, your Google account. You'll use that link into your D&D Beyond account and download the entire adventure. And that's what I did here. This is the download of the adventure. And then you have your scenes. See, it says D&D Beyond integration. Now, what it will do, and I think I deleted all of the maps on here. This pulls in all of the, yeah, I did, because what it does is pull in the black and white maps that came in the adventure of Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I hate black and white maps. You notice this is not a black and white map on here. What I have on here is a map that I made, and if you notice there are doors and everything on here, that is your line of sight. There's your walls, doors, all this kind of stuff. And we'll talk about this other program for a moment after we talk about this. But if you use a program called Dungeon Draft, you can make your maps really simple. And they pull in, line of sight is prepared, you're ready to rock and roll. So, it's not like players will pop in and the whole map's there. The players will pop in and they can only see where they've been. So, and here's another thing. We didn't talk about cost yet. Foundry is a one-time purchase of $50 for a lifetime license. 50. It may be a lot up front, but you're not paying $59 a year, and you're not paying that every year that you want to play. You buy it one time, you own it. And they're constantly doing updates and upgrades to the software as well as to like the 5e system. The guy that does the programming here, he also does the 5e system. There are other people that do the other systems. And if you want to look at how many systems there are available, let's do this. Let's look at our install list of game systems. Vampire 20th, AEG, Fate Core. How many do they have? They have 169 game packages in here now. That is freaking awesome. There used to be like 70 or 80. They have basically doubled. You've got 3.5 SRD. You've got Dungeon Crawl Classics. They're still working on that. The Cypher system is in here. Let's take a look. I'm curious. Do they have Traveler? One of my favorite games. At 2D6, Cephas and Traveler unofficial. So this may even be a Traveler system in there. I mean, Traveler's not big, so that's pretty cool. What about GURPS? GURPS, 4th edition Game Aid. I mean, you can find probably most games that are popular to play on here. What about, let's see, Pathfinder. I know they've got Pathfinder 1 and 2E on here. So you've got a ton of systems, and the community supports a lot of these systems. It's pretty freaking awesome. So another thing that you have that makes this thing even more powerful are modules you can add in. A lot of these I add in for even more usability. Like the Dice So Nice, it turns your dice into 3D dice. Dice Tray adds a little dice tray down there. If there's not a roll for what you need them to do, they can click the dice down there and it'll create a roll for you with a modifier. There's just so many things. Easy target, it makes it really easy to target. You alt left click and there, that guy's targeted, or however many you need to target. They're just things in here that make functionality. You could get along without it. It works well without it, but it works a little better with it. In fact, if you don't like using the client that is built in for AV, you can use a public Jitsi server and pull the video in that way. And that works really well. I've done that as well. So this has a lot more power and potential because of the modules. And all these modules I'm using are free. And let's talk about the other thing that really, really makes me love this program. So this is a program called Dungeon Draft. I use this to make my dungeons. Level 10, Wyrell's Gauntlet. This is a huge freaking map. Now, if you're familiar with the map for this, it's actually this map, this map, and this map. There are 3 levels. With Foundry, you can have 3 separate levels in there, or there's a thing called the levels module, and you would have to create with a transparent background, and you can stack these 3 levels so that when they hit steps, they automatically go up to the next level. Or there's another module that you can install that actually allows you to create teleportation points. What I'll usually do is have my characters, like if they're going from this step on the top level down to, I think this one actually goes to the bottom level down here, and then I create a teleportation point here, and it'll be set up so that I tell them get on the steps, they get there, I click a thing on the map, and it sends them to the next map. They don't see that they're actually going from one map to another. It's instantaneous. But the beauty of this is the fact that the walls created in here, the doors, everything you create goes over into Foundry. So if you're using something, because this is what the original map would look like. In fact, I'll show you what the actual map looks like. All right, just so you can see how this actually works, here is the map brought in all its colorful glory. There are all your walls. Here's all the creatures and stuff. And if you look right here, I've got an area drawn out. And if a character steps in there, I would click on that, and let's drop a character here. And let's show you how cool this is. We'll drop our favorite NPC. If you watch the stream, you'll know. She's psychotic. We like her. See, she's gone. Now that actually takes us to the top level. And look, there she is on the steps. Now, it would be seamless for the player. Their screen would go from this to pop to the other screen. And I preload all of these maps so that it's automatic for them. But as you can see, everything comes in perfectly. You're able to have your walls, doors, assets. The maps look nice. And Dungeon Draft is a $20 program. Now, if you really want to make nice maps on your own, you can use something like Photoshop. The program I'll use is Clip Studio Paint if I want to do something that doesn't have the walls automatically integrated in. But I find for convenience, this $20 program makes life easy. So the combo between Foundry and Dungeon Draft, especially if you're doing like a homebrew and you're going to make your own maps, why not make it so it works on your tabletop and make it so the walls and everything work and you can set up your line of sight. You can even set up tiered lines of sight. If you have somebody up high, people down low, where maybe they wouldn't be able to see on that angle, you can set it up so these guys can look down and see, but they can't see up what's happening on the top ledge or what that mountain looks like above. So you can change inside this program how those walls interact with your players, how it affects their vision. You can even have sounds inside the game that may be blocked by a wall, but when you open a door, those sounds come out to your players. So there are a lot of options in here that are really, really cool for a $50 program. And then add Dungeon Draft, and you're set. But this is my main tabletop because for combat and everything, it works exceptionally well. Now, I do want to show you one more virtual tabletop that I do use to make maps, but it's not fully mature. You can play games on it, but if you like the idea of a 3D tabletop that actually gives you the tabletop experience with miniatures as well as terrain, then you might want to take a look at this one. All right, so the tabletop I'm going to show you now is called Talespire. If you really dig something like Minecraft where you get to build stuff and all, and don't mind having a little bit of blocky map, it's not super blocky, but if you don't mind that and you want a 3D map that has miniatures and the capability to play on it, Talespire may be something to look at. It's $25 per person, so both the DM and your players need to own a copy. Now, there is something in the works where I think players may be able to get a lower priced license, or the DM may be able to get something where they release licenses out and it's basically like a leased out to the players, but that isn't finalized yet. I don't know what they're going to do. Right now, if you buy it and want to use it, everybody has to pay $25. so they have a copy. Now, yes, it does mean everybody can go in and build, but let's say you want to do a massive collaboration build with your players. You can do that and have the map on there. It sits on their servers. They can log in and work on part of the map and do this massive map. I've been experimenting with it. It's really fun to build with, and it looks like it would be fun to play on as well. I haven't used it yet because the integration with games and having actual character sheets doesn't exist, and I do like having that for the record-keeping purposes and playing during the game. If that doesn't bother you, this may be your thing. So let's take a look at Talespire. So this is the first map from Lost Mines of Phandelver, the On the Road map. And I built this inside of Talespire. Basically, let's say, let's drop a character on the map. So, do we care what they look like? Let's do a dwarf. So here's our dwarf. And if you look, it looks just like a miniature. So your players can move their guys around the map. You do have dice that they can throw. Gives you a nice dice animation, throws that up there. Won't have your modifiers or anything like that. There is something called Beyond the Spire. I think it's a Chrome add-on, and you can go in and use your D&D Beyond character sheet, and what you can actually send your rolls to Talespire, so they'll show up on the screen and everybody can see the rolls. But it's, it's a really nice, you can make some really nice looking little maps. I mean, this is the goblin ambush. There should be a couple of goblins over here. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe I moved them. Maybe they died. I don't know. But this, if you're looking for a 3D map, you can really do some pretty big maps. I can show you some others that I've worked on real quick. And then let's go ahead and talk about why virtual tabletops. This is one I've been working on, Dungeon of the Dead 3. This is a little bit more complex map. We've got the water there. If you're familiar with the Dungeon of the Dead 3, you'll see why. But this is a map that actually has levels that you go through. And so like here's the bathhouse that your characters are going to come in and look at. And if you look over here, there's a stairwell going down. And normally we'd have to have another map, right? Well, if you're using this, they go downstairs. And let's strip off as much as we can of this. They go downstairs and they're now in the dungeon itself. And there's our dungeon. They're going to be walking through. It's doors open and close. You have the lighting effects. The reason the water was on the outside is because we need a certain amount of this flooded in this zone. So it works nicely. It's a lot of fun to build. I mean, I've spent a lot of hours building in stream. I still have some other maps I want to finish in stream, but you can do a lot with this and set up all of your encounters inside of here. So if you're looking for a 3D mapping solution, you may want to take a look at Talespire because it does give you that capability and your players the ability to come in and play on a creation that you make that can look fairly good. All right, so let's talk about why virtual tabletops. Ease of use. The main reason for myself is ease of use. I can play with people. My game that I play on Wednesdays had players. One of them actually moved to the area recently, but we're still playing online. But we had somebody that was living in Michigan, people here in Texas. You can't play with people from all over the place if you're sitting at a table. You need a virtual tabletop or some way to be able to play with them. Even if it's getting on something like Discord and talking and not using any maps, just using theater of the mind, which is fine. I prefer to have maps, tabletops, miniatures, something that shows them what you're describing. I mean, can't get more descriptive than those 3D maps. And even the maps that we make in Dungeon Draft give them an exact idea. When you describe a scene or a room, it tells them, shows them what that room looks like. And then the game itself, when they're like, can I see somebody? There's a module that I have in there that actually takes into account half cover. If you're here, an ally is in front of you and you're shooting an enemy there, it recognizes that ally. It takes the -2 off because there's -2 for soft cover shooting through allies when you're doing your attack. It takes all of that into account. You don't have to go, oh, don't forget to do -2. It does it for you. So, and it always, if you forget to look at the map and go, oh, that's soft cover, you're shooting through an ally, and they just roll and they get more than they should have and they hit, then you've got to sit there and go, oh, no, you should have done -2. And even though you've already maybe pulled it off because you screwed up, that thing wasn't dead, you put it back, and then the player's like, but I killed it. No, you didn't. It was -2. You didn't move, soft cover, rules, blah, blah, blah. Virtual tabletops take care of that for you. You don't have those arguments. I don't have to say when players are like, do I have line of sight? Look down there. They'll click on their character, click on that thing. The thing automatically puts a box up. It says half cover, 3/4 cover, full cover. It lets them know they can't hit that enemy that they're trying to hit. And then they have to move and do what they have to do. So it does make playing the game easier. As far as order tracking, if you got 20 freaking skeletons in the room and that they're fighting, God forbid you've got that many. But if you do and you've got 20 skeleton miniatures down, it can be a bear to track which one has taken damage and which ones haven't. Maybe you've got them all color-coded and you've got 20 different colors that your eyes can recognize, or you've got them numbered or something, and that's how you track them on your initiative tracker. You don't have to worry about it. That's tracked inside your virtual tabletop. For me, the biggest thing of virtual tabletops is ease of use and being able to play with anybody that lives anywhere. One game I'm probably going to set up soon is going to have a player that's in England, Sweden, a couple in the U.S. I mean, all over the world. You can't do that sitting at your table, and it gives me the opportunity to play with people I could never play with, just sitting here or going to the store waiting for people to come in. Now, I've got a great group I play with on Wednesday. We all have been playing for years because of that Wednesday Adventures League, but we all at this point prefer playing at home because they come home from work. And this is another thing to think about. Let's say you've got a weeknight game. People come home from work, they're running late, they want to go home and change, maybe take a shower. They wouldn't have time to do that and then come to your house or wherever you're going to go. You probably want them to take a shower, especially if they're doing like manual labor. And it makes life easier. They can go home, do what they want. They don't even have to take a shower if they don't do. They can sit there and stink. You don't know. It's awesome. So it makes life a lot easier. My joke is I don't have to put pants on to play, even though I probably have pants on. But I don't have to put pants on to play if I'm playing on a virtual tabletop, even with the camera on. Ease of use, accounting when it comes to combat, all that stuff. Plus, if you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on hundreds of minis for all the different things that you might want to do, they're all in here. You can create tokens for free. Pull an image off the web, create a token inside of these, and bam, there's your monster token. You are ready to rock and roll. If you download from D&D Beyond, most of those creatures have tokens already made when they import in. They pulled a picture from the monster, create a token, it's there. You have all of that. Your characters, they can create whatever they want for their token that they play with. They can put a picture of themselves. They can dress themselves up funny, take a picture. They can pull down art that they've done. It doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want and have a token that's individual to them. And sometimes it's hard to find a miniature that matches exactly what you want, whereas you can find an image that probably is damn close and make a token. So just my personal opinion, I love using virtual tabletops. Even if I'm sitting at the table with you, I'm going to have a monitor there. That's going to be my map, and that's going to be your token. So everybody has enjoyed it for the last couple of years, both live and now that we're all playing remotely because of COVID, we're all having a great time. And it gives us more time to play. Whereas the store would close at 9, if we have combat going, we'll finish up 20, 30, 40 minutes late and nobody's yelling at us to get out at 9 o'clock. We can do what we want. We can play any day we want. We're not subject to the store's restrictions. So, I mean, there's just so many benefits to using a virtual tabletop. It's it's a no-brainer for me. I love using it. Virtual tabletops are just awesome. And if you can get something like Foundry for 50 bucks and you already own all of your books on D&D Beyond, you can import that stuff for free. Why the hell not? It is so worth it to be able to pull that stuff in that you already own and have a full game set up. And if you're going to homebrew the game and make maps, you get something like Dungeon Draft, make your own maps. Oh my God, you have so much freedom to do what you want, create what you want, make things look exactly like you want. I don't think that I don't think I've been happier as a DM since since I started using virtual tabletops. You know, before I always had to worry about maps and everything. I don't have to worry about anything. I can make it exactly the way I want. But that's up to you. Let me know. Are virtual tabletops for you? Do you think that maybe it would be something you'd want to use? Are you using them now? And what do you think? Which ones are you using? Let me know down below. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll be doing another video another week or so. No idea what. We'll think about it. If you have any suggestions or something you'd like discussed about D&D or gaming in general, go ahead and put it down there. But that'll be it for the day. Everybody have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.